The first drop of wine struck the paper at precisely 4:15 in the afternoon, a deliberate act that shattered the fragile peace of our family gathering. My sister Emily didn't spill it by accident. She poured it with a calculated indifference, standing over my 8-year-old son, Ethan. As she tilted her glass of Pinot Noir, the dark red liquid spread like a wound across the watercolor landscape he'd crafted over 3 long days. A serene view of the lake by our parents' cabin, meant as a heartfelt gift for his grandfather. Now it bled into the blue sky, warping the edges and turning his innocent creation into a sodden ruin. In that moment, I felt a deep, visceral ache, the kind that comes from watching vulnerability crushed under casual cruelty. A mature realization of how family ties can bind and break us all at once. He needs to learn that the world doesn't care about his little doodles, Emily slurred, her voice steady despite the haze of alcohol, as she set her empty glass down with a wet thud on the soaked paper. It's taking up space on the table, and honestly, Ethan needs to toughen up. She scanned the room for approval, her arrogance hanging in the air like a challenge. My Uncle Paul, lounging on the sofa, slapped his knee and barked a laugh. That's a $50 lesson right there. Kid, toughen up or get eaten. The laughter rippled through the cabin then, sharp and ugly, pulling in my mother with her nervous chuckle, desperate to keep things light, and my cousin with a smug smirk. Ethan froze, his small hands trembling over the table, staring at the destruction without a sound. His shoulders shook, face flushing a mottled red, but he bit his lip until it whitened, shrinking into his chair as if willing himself invisible. He was learning to be me, I thought, the words echoing in my mind like a quiet thunder, stirring an emotional storm of regret and resolve. I didn't scream or rush to clean the mess. I barely breathed, my eyes locked on Ethan. He wasn't seeking comfort, he was hiding, waiting for the laughter to fade, hoping silence would make the predator lose interest. In that heavy quiet, I saw the invisible chain coiling around his neck, the same one I'd worn for 31 years, teaching me to swallow anger, to be convenient, to fade into the background. I was watching him inherit my trauma. The realization hit like a physical blow, colder than the lake's chill outside, awakening a profound sense of human connection frayed by years of unspoken pain. He was absorbing the fawn response right before me, learning that his hurt was a punchline to those meant to protect him, that smiling through humiliation kept the adults comfortable. If I didn't shatter that chain now, he'd carry it forever, apologizing for existing just as I had. The air thickened with decades of unsaid grievances, electric and heavy. I glanced at my father, Michael, at the head of the table, his hands folded over an empty plate, face unreadable like carved stone. But I knew him, the white knuckles gripping his fork, the jumping muscle in his jaw betrayed the storm brewing. I stood, the chair scraping harshly against the wood floor, slicing through the laughter like a blade. I positioned myself between Emily and Ethan, my body a shield, ignoring the wine and locking eyes with her. For the first time, I felt no urge to smooth things over or joke away the tension. Instead, a cold clarity settled in, like a bridge burning in slow motion. It wasn't rage. It was accounting, I realized, done paying interest on a debt I never owed, a mature reckoning with the emotional toll of family dynamics. You enjoyed that, I said flatly, clinically. You enjoyed watching an 8-year-old create something beautiful, and you enjoyed destroying it. Emily rolled her eyes, pouring another glass with loose, arrogant movements. Oh, Lavra, don't be so dramatic. It's just paper. I did him a favor, now he can learn something useful instead of making messes. Useful, I echoed, the word tasting like iron, bitter and unyielding. The room fell silent, her smirk faltering, glass pausing midair. My mother gasped, panic rising, but I didn't blink. I was no longer the peacemaker, but a mother guarding her child with fierce, unspoken intensity. Michael's eyes shifted to me, holding a depth of shared understanding. Before I could press further, my mother, Linda, burst in, grabbing napkins and scrubbing frantically at the table, ignoring the ruined painting. Oh, Emily, you're so clumsy, she chirped, voice high and tight with manic energy. Laura, don't make a fuss, it was an accident. We can get him a nice coloring book with stickers. Her smile stretched thin, eyes pleading. Let's just have a nice dinner. It's Labor Day, we're family. Watching her, the pity I'd long felt evaporated. She wasn't helpless, she was addicted to the illusion of harmony, taxing the quiet ones like me and Ethan to maintain it, sacrificing our dignity to appease the chaos Emily brought. The realization hit me like a physical blow colder than the lake outside, deepening my resolve as I saw how she'd let Ethan bleed to keep the carpet clean. Exactly, Emily chimed in, emboldened. He's too soft. Laura babies him, I'm teaching him the real world. That snapped the final thread. Michael rose slowly with the creaking weight of an old structure giving way. Walking to the mantel where a sign read, "Family is forever." He stared, then faced Linda. You wiped the table, he rumbled, voice low like thunder. You didn't check on the boy. You worried about the wood stain. Linda froze, napkin in hand. Michael, stop being dramatic. You're trying to keep the peace, he interrupted. But there is no peace, Linda, just silence. And I'm done paying for it. He twisted his gold wedding band. Worn for 42 years, grimacing as he worked it off with soap at the sink, then dropped it into the wine-soaked painting with a dull thud, splashing red onto the cloth. I am done keeping your peace, he declared, and done protecting you. The silence became a vacuum, sucking the air from the cabin. Emily laughed nervously. Dad, are you senile? It's a painting you're divorcing Mom over a $5 watercolor? Pathetic. Michael ignored her, pulling a thick, worn leather notebook from his bag, setting it down heavily. I've been a structural engineer for 42 years, Emily, he said calmly, factually, terrifyingly. I track stress fractures, find cracks before collapse. I track failures. He opened it to pages of meticulous handwriting, dates, and numbers. 3 years ago, you needed $5,000 for a business loan, your influencer career taking off, new equipment. Emily crossed her arms. Yeah, and I paid you back mostly. What's this, an audit? You didn't pay back a dime, Michael replied. That's not the point. I started tracking everything extra cash for groceries, home repairs that never happened. Dips in our savings for emergencies. He showed the columns to Emily and Linda. I hired a forensic accountant to trace where it went. Linda made a strangled noise, reaching out trembling. Michael, please not in front of everyone. Everyone needs to know, he said. Because everyone's been laughing at Laura and Ethan, thinking they're weak. But they're not, they're paying the bill. His eyes met mine, full of aching apology. I let this happen, Laura. I let you think you were less than her. But I was watching, counting. He turned pages to bank receipts. This isn't an allowance, Emily, it's ransom. Tracing red ink, August 14th. 2 years ago, $12,000 for a brand partnership. April 3rd last year, $8,000 for medical bills. He met Linda's terrified gaze. But the biggest was 3 years ago, the Labor Day party we skipped because you were sick, Linda. Linda shook her head, tears streaming. Michael, stop, please protect the name. His voice cracked with fury. You didn't protect the name, you protected a criminal. He flipped to a police report. The $174,000 wasn't for loans or gifts, it was hush money. Emily froze, terror replacing arrogance, glancing at the door. What dark secret had been buried all these years, and how would it unravel everything we thought we knew? 3 years ago, Michael continued, his voice steady but laced with a pain that cut through the room like a cold wind. Emily drove home drunk from a party. She hit a parked car and then she hit a pedestrian. A 19-year-old girl walking her dog. I gasped, the cabin spinning around me as buried memories surfaced. That was the time Emily had vanished for a month, Mom claiming she was in Europe, finding herself. The truth had been hidden in plain sight, protected by lies we all swallowed to keep the family facade intact. She didn't stop, Michael said, his words heavy with the weight of betrayal. She fled the scene a hit and run. Linda was sobbing into her hands now, body rocking while Emily sat frozen. Her earlier arrogance draining away like the wine into the ruined paper. You took our retirement money, Michael told Linda, voice trembling with restrained fury. $174,000 you paid a lawyer to bury it. A settlement to the girl's family to keep it quiet, off the books repairs for the car. You told me it was a parking dispute, that it was handled. He slammed the ledger shut, the echo sharp as a gunshot in the small space. You stole our future to cover her crime. And then you let her sit here, mocking an 8-year-old for painting a picture. Destroying his work because you taught her destruction has no consequences. Emily's mouth opened and closed soundlessly, pale as ash. You aren't a businesswoman or an influencer, Michael said, looking at her with detached pity, like an engineer assessing a failing structure. You're a liability and your mother is your accomplice. The silence that followed was suffocating. The sound of a family myth dying, leaving only raw, aching truth in its wake. Emily tried to rally, standing to smooth her expensive dress, summoning the arrogance that had shielded her for 35 years. So what? She spat, chin high. It was an accident. Mom helped me, that's what mothers do. Unlike you. She glared at Michael. You're jealous because Mom loves me more. I don't need your money, I have my brand, my followers. I don't need this dusty old cabin. Michael's gaze remained cold. You have nothing. He pulled a folded document from the ledger, placing it beside the discarded ring and Ethan's ruined painting. This cabin is in my name, my inheritance. Your mother's isn't on the deed. He smoothed it flat. You have 1 hour to leave. All of you, Linda included. I'm listing it for sale tomorrow to recoup what you stole. You can't kick us out, Linda wailed, clutching her chest as rain pounded outside. Where will I go? It's pouring. I don't know, Michael replied, emotion drained from his voice. Maybe stay with the daughter you invested so much in. He turned to Emily. And your own money? As of 10 minutes ago, while you poured wine on my grandson's art, I froze the joint accounts, reported the transfers as fraud. The bank locked everything. Credit cards, business accounts. Emily frantically checked her phone, face crumbling as the app showed declines. It's declined, she whispered, the gray pallor making her look small, stripped of the rented power that had defined her. Without the financial lifeline, her confidence evaporated. She wasn't powerful. She was a child in borrowed armor. The lease suddenly expired. Your power was rented, Michael echoed my silent thoughts, and the landlord is closing the building. He opened the front door wide. Rain sheeted in, wind howling, turning the driveway to mud. Get out. Emily looked desperately to Paul, who averted his eyes, then to Linda, weeping uselessly. Finally, to me. Lavra, she pleaded, voice breaking, eyes wet with sudden isolation. Tell him he's crazy. You can't let him do this, I'm your sister. I met her gaze, seeing the woman who terrorized me for decades, the wine stain on Ethan's painting a stark symbol of her cruelty. I thought of the silence I'd broken, the chain I refused to pass on. You should hurry, I said coolly, matching the storm outside. Traffic will be terrible. 6 months later, the light in our new apartment felt like a gentle embrace, clean and white, streaming through wide windows overlooking a city park. It was smaller than the house Michael and Linda had shared for 42 years, but it breathed peace. No eggshells to tiptoe across, no heavy sighs signaling guilt, no dread of the next outburst. I sat on the floor, back against the wall, watching them with a quiet, profound warmth. Michael knelt beside Ethan on a drop cloth, both dusted in sawdust, as he taught him to use a miter box for a custom canvas frame. Measure twice, Ethan, he said softly, patient, the voice of a man finally free to speak gently. Precision matters. A strong frame keeps the art safe. Like this, Grandpa? Ethan asked, sawing carefully, tongue out in concentration, his laugh light when a bit of glue spilled. He wiped it up without flinching, secure in the knowledge no one would lash out. Linda lived in a small condo 2 towns over, sending occasional letters on fancy stationery, long, rambling blames about ruining the family image, embarrassing her at church, our cruelty. I burned them in the sink after the first line. She still tried to tax us for a piece that never existed, but we'd stopped paying. Emily worked retail at a mall kiosk selling phone cases. The fraud investigation sparked a tax audit. She sold her car, moved to a studio, facing reality without a net for the first time in 35 years. The fall had been brutal, stripping away the illusions. Watching Ethan, now laughing freely, creating without fear, I felt the deep emotional reward of our choice. We'd paid a steep price, burning the toxic structure to save its foundation, breaking bonds to preserve the people worth saving. Looking at Michael's relaxed shoulders, Ethan's unburdened smile, I knew it was the wisest bargain of my life. The legacy of silence ended here, replaced by genuine connection, subtle strength, and the quiet sensuality of healing, a mature peace earned through necessary fire. We had chosen ourselves, and in that freedom, we truly lived. If standing for your truth meant letting go of toxic ties, whisper liberated in the comments below. Let's hold space for one another, knowing we chose healing over hollow harmony.